been an amazing pleasure on the last few Wednesdays to get to come in and teach the class, and it's been something different than what I'm used to. It's a change of pace, different from the youth, and moving out. And so as much as I like to preach, this may be a little teachy tonight, but I'm going to get into a story in just a minute, but I just want to talk about maybe where we are, and if you're not there, maybe you're going to be there. I don't know if God is preparing, but I had this in my heart this morning as I was driving early, and then as Dustin texted me this afternoon, and I thought, well, I'm just gonna find this. I'm gonna find a chapter in the Bible, and I'm gonna preach it that way tonight. And so I felt like this is what God wanted me to do. I feel like it's the cry that He wants us to call out. And there's another song that Nicole Mullen cries out that says, "I know my Redeemer lives," and so I always relate to that song. I've always loved that song. It's still on a playlist and has been for probably 25 years. So I want tonight to talk about Job, and I want to relate it to how we come through things. And so it's real easy to preach about the suffering of Job, but I want to talk about Job 19 and the point that he came to tonight. So I'm going to be in Job 19 in just a minute, but I want to lead you up to a point of Job 19 before we get started tonight. And Job was what every Bible scholar thinks is probably the richest man that there was in the Bible. He had everything that there was to have. He had every John Deere tractor on the lot. He had a whole pasture full of cattle, full of oxen, full of every kind of farm animal that he could ever need. He lived in a big house. He was a very, very wealthy man. Not only was he wealthy, he had more kids than I got. He was 3 plus 7. He had 10. All right, 3 girls, 7 boys. He was very blessed. I guess maybe birth control wasn't a thing back then either, because it was a problem for Job. And so Job has all 10 of these children. He has everything in his life that he could possibly be blessed with. And I want to talk to us for a little bit tonight about this. Because a lot of times, Bubba, we think that, well, everything's just supposed to be good and life's going to be okay, right, Destin? Or, we're going to get through. What about that moment in our life, though, when things are going good, when we've got it all and we can give, and we're in that season in our life, and all of a sudden, Glenna, God holds you up and holds you up to Satan and says, Have you tried my servant Glenna? Have you tried Ed? And we think sometimes that that's not supposed to happen. We think that God's supposed to be our Jehovah Jireh. He's supposed to be our provider. Everything's supposed to be good. But and I say this a lot. I've told the kids in the back this a lot, that if your life was perfect, you wouldn't even know that you needed God. So sometimes God has to hold you up to Satan and say, hey, have you tried my servant? Have you tried my boy down there? Have you tried my girl? Because I don't think that you can make her cave. I don't think that you can get him. And so when all hell breaks loose, when things get crazy, when it gets to that point, we look through this what happens to Job. And all of his animals die. His house is taken out. All 10 of his children die. Now listen, I don't know how you go on. I mean, I could probably handle the house and the animals dying you wouldn't have to feed them anymore. Maybe it gets rid of some headache. I don't know. Sometimes I can remember show animals, and I was just thinking, I wish they would just die now. But, I sometimes you think if you're putting up with them, maybe that wasn't that bad of a part. But I also, but you get to the point of when it's your babies, and you think that nothing means more than those kids that you have, and all 10 of them. And why did, I can't answer this question, but I'm still going to ask it tonight because I don't understand it. Why would God say you could, Glenna, you can have everything but his life, but he took his 10 kids' lives? Why did they all die, but Job couldn't die? Because I know that Job would have sacrificed himself for his kid's life. I know that any man of God would say, take me before you take my babies. And so I don't understand. I don't understand why this happened. And I think I said this in the back the other night that Miss Job, I don't know what to call her other than Miss Job, but she's, ever since the beginning of church culture, she's been vilified as a person because we know what she said. She said, why don't you just curse God and die? And so she's been the villain, and every time we preach this message, she's I can't believe that she would do that after all the blessings that she had. Let it happen to you, and see if you weren't a little bit bitter. I'm okay with Miss Job's anger a little bit here, because I'm thinking at this point I'd have probably cut him myself. I'd have probably done something to take him out myself if I knew that's what was causing it. And if I was the mama and all 10 of my babies were gone, and I knew that it was a test, I think, well, maybe it'd be easier, but just cut him. But she's vilified to this point. But what do we do in that situation? And I just want to talk a little bit about me tonight. I want to read Job chapter 19, and I'm gonna read through it fast and parts of this chapter. But follow along. I'm reading out of the ESV tonight to try to make this go a little faster. But it says this in 19 verse 1. Then Job answered and said, how long will you torment me and break me in pieces with words? These 10 times you have cast reproach upon me. Are you not ashamed to wrong me? And even if it be true that I have erred, my error remains with myself. If indeed you magnify yourself against me and make my disgrace an argument against me, know then that God has put me in the wrong and closed his net about me. Behold, I cry out violence, but I am not answered. I call for help, but there is no justice. He has walled up my way so that I cannot pass, and he has set darkness upon my paths. He has stripped me my glory and taken the crown from my head. He breaks down every side, and I am gone, and my hope has pulled up like a tree. He has kindled his wrath against me and counts me as an adversary. I want you to hold on to that for just a minute. And we vilify, like I said, Miss Job. But here is Job being real with God. He said he felt like at this point that he was an adversary to God, because so many things had happened. So many things had crept in and sucked the life out of Job. He said he sucked the skin plumb down to my bones. I've got sores. I can't eat. I'm sick. He's taken my health. He's taken my babies. He's taken my home. He's taken my animals. He's taken my wealth. And God has allowed this, so he must be my adversary. And here's what I came to say tonight, and it's probably not popular to say from a pulpit, but righteous anger is okay for a time. It's okay to ask God, why is this happening to me? Why am I going through this time? Why is this person the thorn in my flesh? Why am I having to deal with this in this season of this life? Because God, I need some answers. It's okay to ask God for answers. Sometimes we think that I've just got to go. I was telling this morning that sometimes, man, when and we was talking about this with Bubba and Tasha and the baby the other night, and the healing of her foot. Sometimes when you cry out, God answers, and sometimes you can cry and cry and cry, and you don't see a lot of progress. Sometimes you just ask, why is this happening? Sometimes it's immediate. Sometimes God does a miracle. And sometimes you can pray and pray and pray, and God has a different plan. There's a Mercy Me song that says, even if the healing doesn't come, and I preached a lot about even if faith, that even if it doesn't happen right now, even if your loved one doesn't come back right now, are you still going to believe that God has the promise that He's made to you? I talked to you Wednesday night in there about the promise and holding on to the promise and the scarlet cord. But can you hold on even in these times when it gets to this point? And in verse 12 it says that His troops come on together. They have cast up their siege ramp against me and encamp around my tent. I'm going to get to a verse here in a minute that I want you to focus on. Verse 13 says, He has put my brothers far from me, and those who knew me are wholly estranged from me. Pay attention to these verses. Verse 14 says, my relatives have failed me. My close friends have forgotten me. The guests in my house and my maidservants count me as a stranger. I have become a foreigner in their eyes. I don't have any friends left. I don't have any family left. I don't have anything left. I call to my servant, but he gives me no answers. I must plead with him with my mouth for mercy. My breath is strange to my wife, and I am a stench to the children of my own mother. Listen, this verse means that he's sleeping on a couch. Nothing's happening in the house. Him and his wife aren't even friendly to each other. He said, listen, I want you to know I don't have a family member that I can count on. I can't count. My wife is estranged from me. My friends are all gone. My relatives, my cousins, there is nobody. And I want you to think about how lonely of a place this is. And I was talking to somebody right before I got here tonight if I needed confirmation that this is what I was supposed to do. I had somebody text me and say, I don't know what it takes. I don't know what it takes to be happy. It's been so long. I can't. The people around me deserve better. I can't smile. I want you to know in this room tonight that there's a point that you get to here. There's a point when Job got to this, because he had tried to be strong for his wife. He had done everything that he could. But in 19, he's crying out. In Job chapter 19, he's crying out and he says, listen, I don't know what I have left to offer you, God. I don't know what more that you could take from me. I don't know what I have left. And he went on in verse 18 to say, even young children despise me. When I rise, they talk against me. All my intimate friends abhor me, and those whom I loved have turned against me. My bones stick to my skin and to my flesh, and I have escaped by the skin of my teeth. Have mercy on me, have mercy on me. O you, my friends, for the hand of God has touched me. Why do you, like God, pursue me? Why are you not satisfied with my flesh? And here, I believe that he was talking. And I believe that at points in this, and I want you to notice where the shift is. Because sometimes in our Christian walk, it's as important, and you're going to think I'm crazy when I say this, but listen to me and hear me out. It's as important that we talk to Satan as it is that we talk to God. And he said, why why do you pursue me? Because he turns it here and he says, have mercy on me, have mercy on me. And he's talking to God. He said, for the hand of God has touched me. Why? Then in 22 he says, why do you, like God, pursue me? Satan, why are you so intent on ruining everything that I have? And I believe that Job addresses God, and then he addresses Satan, and he says, why do you continue? You have almost taken everything that I have, Satan. Why do you, like God, pursue me? Why are you pursuing me harder than God? And this is what I want to talk to you for just a few more minutes tonight, and I'm going to have them come play, and I want to give us a chance to pray. But I believe that it's important that we talk to God, but we also know when to talk to Satan and say, be gone. You have no more place in my life. You're not taking one more thing from me. I'm coming back after the land that you've already stolen. You've taken too much time from my life, my family, my friends. You've taken all of this. Job kept a record for 21 verses of asking God why. And I believe that for one moment he turned it on Satan and said this, why do you, like God, pursue me? Why are you not satisfied with just my flesh? Why couldn't you have taken me instead of my babies and all my animals? And why couldn't God have just taken me out of this deal and maybe used it for glory? Why couldn't you have just been satisfied with my life? Why am I having to deal with this? Why is my bones eating my skin at this point? And it says in verse 23, oh, that the words were written and that they were inscribed in a book. Oh, that there is an iron pen and a lead that were engraved in the rock forever. This is what I believe is important in verse 25 tonight. It says, for I know that my Redeemer lives, and at the last he will stand up on the earth. Of everything that Job professed, of everything that was important, he said, I know, for I know my Redeemer lives. Tonight, I don't know whatever it is that we go through, whatever struggle it is in our life, I believe that it's important that we say at the end of it, for I know my Redeemer lives. In the even if faith, we have to say, for I know my Redeemer lives. Verse 26 said, and after my skin has thus been destroyed, yet in my flesh I shall see God. I know that even after all of this, I'm going to go meet my kids someday. I'm going to go, he said, I know that I'm going to go meet my family someday. Everything that has been taken to me, I know will be given back to me tenfold someday. And I can't wait. I can't wait to get to heaven and see Job. I think about this sometimes, that would I have been able to do it, Bubba? Could you even stand? Could you come to church? Could you keep lifting your hands and praising God if you were in this condition, if you were in Job's condition? Because we so much more easily want to just give up sometimes and just say, man, I don't need this right now, and I'm just going to check out for a little while, and I need some time. My family needs some time. But listen, I believe that verse 25 that says, for I know my Redeemer lives. No matter what, he will redeem me. He will reach down to the pit and pull me out. If you went over to Hartshorn the other night and listened to Brother Josh preach that message about, as one by one, as they went down and they had to go to a place that was below the earth, and they were waiting for Jesus to come get the keys. And everyone that came, they would tell their story. And I thought he laid that out as incredible as I've ever heard preached. But one by one, they kept coming as people kept dying and going. And all of a sudden, when Jesus showed up for those 3 days and said, all right, those of you who have done it, those of you who have lived, those of you who are confessed, you're coming and you're going with me. and what a day that will be. For I know my Redeemer lives, and one day I will see the evidence of what my faith and what I have stood on. And everything that I've gone through, it's going to have a purpose in my life. I may suffer now, but guess what? It's going to pay off later. I was listening to Dustin preach this morning. It's what got me off on this even a little bit more. I thought about the children of Israel back as they was going across the Red Sea, and what would they have done if they would have gotten to the Red Sea and God wouldn't have performed the miracle, Jessica? What would they have done? Do you think anybody in the army would have turned into Michael Phelps and just took off? I mean, do you have that kind of faith? If God leads you to the Red Sea and He doesn't split it wide open, we talked about mustard seed faith this morning, but what if in the moment God doesn't perform the miracle? Are you ready to put your flops on and jump in and swim if that's what it takes? If that's what it takes to get to the promised land that God has for you, if that's what it takes to get out of your Egypt, or is that what you're prepared to do? Or would you just stand there and wait? I've thought about that story a few times in the Bible because I think about how different that it is. I just spoke to you on Wednesday night about Rahab. And the reason Rahab was saved was because she heard about Moses' Red Sea story. Those of you who were here on Wednesday night, the reason that there was even a scarlet cord was because she heard about the Red Sea story. She heard about their crossing. She heard about how big that God was. And then out of Rahab eventually became Ruth. I spoke about this morning for a little while. Out of Ruth became Obed. Out of Obed became Jesse. Out of Jesse became David. 37 generations later was our hope, our living hope and our purpose, and the only reason that we have a hope to do anything in our life. I was telling a while ago that the reason and the only way that you're ever really going to have hope and a purpose and be satisfied in this life is if you understand that I am going to that person, Bubba, and I am blessing somebody else. And this life is not about me. It's not about what I can do. It's not about the glory that I can get, because if that's all you get focused on in this life, is what about me and what my problems are and what I'm not doing, you're gonna look at yourself and you're gonna seem pretty small in this life. But Ed, the more I can do for you, the more I could do for you, Paul, the more that I could reach out to somebody else and say, I love you. There's a purpose. There's a season for this. It's all going to change. And I believe that we're called to do that. I believe that's why we are here as a church, is because it may not be your season to suffer through like Job, but who is in our community right now? Who is in this church right now suffering through that season in their life? And do you have grace enough to go to them and say, I love you through this season? I love you through the times that Job hasn't, and I understand. I don't understand, because I can't imagine what Job went through. I can't imagine what some people who are under the sound of my voice right now are going through. I don't know. I haven't gone through all of that. I've gone through some trials myself, but I haven't gone through what you've gone through. I don't know your loss. I don't know your trials and your troubles. I do know this. I do know this, that when we're faithful, that God is going to do really, really big things. And the things that Satan has tried to steal, God will bless us back tenfold. Ryan, Kaylin, I believe that God is going to bless you guys tenfold, because I know there's been some suffering thus far. But I believe that right now you guys are about to see a huge blessing. I know that when we suffer in this life, that there's always a purpose, and sometimes pain is a conduit for the place that God has taken you to. And I don't know what else to tell you guys tonight other than this, that throughout the most painful season of my life, God has grown me the most. When I didn't understand what my purpose was, and I was battling depression and struggles and trials in my life, God grew me the most. When I thought that sometimes maybe life wasn't worth living, when I thought that my ministry was destroyed and life was over, God grew me the most. God sent me the biggest blessings in my life. I joked the other day about having 3 kids, but still trying to raise a house full of middle-aged teenagers that are now 25 and still act like teenagers, and still come back and every time they get in trouble. But I'm thankful. I'm thankful that God has blessed me in those things that says it looked bad at the time. But I was standing there the other day, and this is not for my glory, but when somebody says, if it wasn't for you, I don't know where I would be. If it wasn't for you, I would probably be on the streets, and you just think, man, that was the worst time of my life. Every time I look back on that and I hear some kid look at me and say, if it wasn't for you, I don't know what I would do, and I look at God and think that was the worst time of my life. Sometimes the worst things that we go through, it's not about you. It's not about us and how we're feeling at the time. You may be going through one of the worst seasons of your life, and somebody's going to look at you someday and say, I knew that I had a Redeemer that lives because of you. I knew that there was a purpose because of you. But here's what I want us to do as a church tonight, and Sarah, you can come play, and Brandon, whoever's going to come tonight. I want us to do this. I want us to know as a church that it's just as important that if we've got to go through what we're going through right now, and we've got to go through dripping, we're going to go through. If we've got to cross the Red Sea on wet land, we'll cross the Red Sea swimming, if that's what it took. But also, I want you to know this tonight, that if Satan's claiming things in your life, if he snuck in and someone you know is battling depression right now because it's close to home, sometimes I get really worried about what's it going to look like, what's going to happen, what's the end game. It's just as important to talk to Satan and say, why do you, like God, pursue me? Because I know this, that if Satan is pursuing you and your family and your loved ones tonight, why are you not just satisfied with my flesh? If Satan is pursuing after you and your flesh and your family and your friends and your relatives, if he's pursuing, there's a purpose for you that maybe you haven't even answered yet. Maybe you don't even know, but there's a reason that we should be reaching, and we should be touching, and we should be encouraging, should be going to people and visiting, and sometimes I'm not good enough at this, and I believe that there's a purpose for us tonight, that we have to shift from verse 21. It says, have mercy on me, have mercy on me. Oh, you my friends, for the hand of God has touched me. I want tonight to cry out and say that the hand of God has touched me, but Satan's still pursuing. And the only way that I know that I have purpose, sometimes we want to tell Satan that he has no place. But it's a scary moment, Glenna, if Satan's not after you. Because he knows that you don't have a purpose anymore. If there aren't bad things coming up against you, if there's not trials and trouble, I know that we don't like to go through them. Hunter, if he wasn't coming after you, if he wasn't trying you, there wouldn't be no purpose left. I'm thankful tonight that Satan's still trying to get me. But I also know that it's just as important that I talk to him and tell him that he's not welcome here. He's not getting this. He's not touching my babies. I told them this morning, I get a little emotional about this because, you know, with a little boy, I've cried out to God time after time that things begin to get better. Like, I want to see it, God. I want to see it. I want to see it. I want to see things get better. And I believe that they will, because I believe that one day his voice will be louder than mine. And I've said it before, but he'll preach louder than I preach. But I told him this morning out there when I went and talked that I've got a little girl that is crazy and acts like her nanny. And so about midnight the other night, when she was screaming like a serial killer in the bed, and I went in there and I crawled in the crib and I'm balled up, my long legs wrapped around her, and because Ashley gets her out and rocks her, and it's just easier for me to crawl in the crib and go to sleep. That's what I do if I have to get up. But I got in there, Bubba, and I was praying what I prayed over my boy so many times, but man, God got a hold of me. And it's just different with little girls. There's something about it. But I prayed, you know, God, keep alcohol away from her lips. Keep drugs out of her body. Don't ever let the things that Satan has come against her. But God, right now, I pray that you send her the godly man, the Boaz that she needs. I believe right now that it's going to start. That those things are going to be spoken to our children's lives and our family's lives and our friends' lives and our relatives. It's important that we start talking to Satan right now and say, you keep Jezebel away from her. Every spirit that can haunt and taunt and destroy and kill and steal has no place in the life of my babies. But God, send right now. Send somebody into my family's life that's a Boaz. Send the good ones, God. Send the ones that may have had a bad past, but are willing to reach down and like Rahab and say, I've heard the Red Sea story, and I'm here now. I need somebody in here tonight to say this. I'm ready to talk to Satan and say, be gone. Out of my family, out of my friends. You've taken enough. You've stolen enough. You've taken enough out of this church. And not one more day, not one more time, not one more minute in this church is it welcome. Tonight, I want to pray, and then we're just going to open the altars up. Because I believe that all over this room, Satan's taking things from you and your family. It may not be as severe as what we talked about with Job. But I believe that we're going to come through this, and we may come out dripping because it doesn't look as pretty as the seawall splitting open. But we're coming through. We're going to come through. Heavenly Father, I thank you tonight, God. I thank you for your word, God. I pray that everybody under the sound of my voice, God, has received what you had for them tonight. Lord, I ask that right now that you would send down an angel to touch the ones that need it tonight in this room. God, that your Holy Spirit, your comforter, would wrap your arms around the person that needs loved on in this room tonight, God. The one that needs a hug. God, I pray that in this room tonight, they would know that Jehovah Jireh is present, that their provider is real, that you are here, that the Prince of Peace and the King of Kings has showed up for everyone in the room tonight. God, I ask that you would take the spirit of Job and place it in the one that needs some long suffering for the problems that their family's facing right now. Lord, I speak peace into the one that Satan has haunted so long because he's been after their wayward child. And God, I declare tonight that prodigals are coming home. I ask that in this room tonight, God, that you would have your way, that you would humble us at the foot of your throne, that we would learn how to talk to you. And God, we could declare and know that when we leave here, we've been talking to Jesus. We're going to be talking to Jesus for the rest of our lives. God, but I believe tonight there's some in this room that need to declare that Satan has to be gone too, and we have to talk to him, and we have to tell him to leave sometimes too. Not an intimate conversation, but a demand tonight that no more. There will be no more attacks on my family, no more attacks on my friends. Satan, be gone tonight from this room, from this church, from your crowd. Satan, be gone tonight in the name of Jesus. I declare it for this church, for everyone under the sound of my voice tonight. God, we'll praise you in the storm. We'll praise you in the rain. We'll praise you when the days are good. We'll praise you on the mountaintop and in the valley tonight, God. We thank you and we love you in the name of Jesus. Amen. If you want to come tonight and